So today we were talking about in our AI task force, we were talking about kind of receiving AI slop. And I know the term AI slop is out there all over the place, but we're talking about receiving AI slop, which is just like the output of an AI generative engine, an LLM or something like that, that is just kind of like unreviewed, too much, uncurated, and annoying as hell. So wanted to chat with you guys about AI slop and our thoughts on all of that. I guess starting with like
I think
what is it, or whatever. Drew, go ahead.
I'll take the simplest definition. If the goal of AI is to be more efficient and save time, slop is the point where you crossed over into costing you and the other person you communicated with more time than it would have taken
To
to do it
just do
without
it.
AI, right? Like your cost benefit was costly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think about it as like the other thing that I think of as slop is if I'm doing something and I'm using AI and it increases the scope of what somebody else is doing. Like increasing the scope of what I'm doing as long as I can get it done within the time. But if I've increased the scope of what I'm doing and therefore it increases the scope of what somebody else is doing, especially if they're not able to use something that speeds them up like AI to do their job, then I think of that as AI slop as well. It's just like here you go. This sped me up. I think we can do a lot more with this. So screw you on how long it's going to take you to do your job now.
I think about AI slop, and I think it's just like it's it's um it's kind of lazy
Yeah.
for one thing, but it ends up being just like, people think more is more, because more isn't always more,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so sometimes it's, somebody asked for an answer about something, and you have the AI generate 10 pages of
Yeah.
answer for something that could have been a page, right? But the AI can trivially, I mean, you can have the AI create 10 pages in 10 seconds,
Yeah.
right? And so it's so easy to generate that they just hand wave it and send it off. And I think about the old quote that if I'd had more time, I'd have written a shorter letter,
Yeah. Oh man,
right?
how relevant is
And
that?
AI slop is just a perfect example of that. Somebody who's decided they're going to spend 20 seconds on this, so they give the AI the simplest possible prompt, let it ramble on for 10 pages of meandering nonsense, and then send that off.
And I
Now the
would
other
add,
person has to spend how much time it is to wade through all that, or they have their AI
Just slop
to
back and
summarize
forth.
it
Just
for them.
slop on slop on
Yeah.
slop.
What was the thing about I had 3 bullet points, so my AI wrote an email, and then the other person says I took this email and generate and distilled it down to 3 bullet points.
Mhm.
Like, just send the bullet points. Like,
and I think it's that symptom, right? It's like I will not bring thought to my work. I will not let anyone force me to bring thought to my work, and that inevitably leads to these models just making useless output. I mean, truly, they're an output with no actionable items. I think that is the key element that I would notice is when I get something and it doesn't even have to look AI generated. I'm not looking for M
Mhm.
dashes. I'm just looking for whether the person got to the point,
Mhm.
and people can do that too. But the I think the key contributing factor seems to be if somebody's busy and they bring zero thought to it and they will not review it or edit it at all. I think it's a symptom of the times, right? We're being pulled in so many different directions. We're being asked to do so many
Mhm.
things in
Mhm.
our day, and you end up being like, just like Ben said, I have 20 seconds to do this. Let's go ahead and run it off. But if you added intentionality, which is expensive, right? That costs me a lot of my focus
Yeah.
in a day. If I'd spent 1 minute of attentive time or even 20 seconds of attentive time, I would have done something that was more valuable to both me and the recipient. Yeah.
and I
Well,
hate to say it, but I've been kind of circling around this idea, and it kind of tied in. It was inspired originally by, people saying, "Why do lawyers keep submitting all these fake citations?" Blah 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 blah. And I've been sort of circling around this thought of there's only so far some people are willing to go to, like, only so much effort they're willing to put into something if they think it's good
mm,
enough. And and so there's a certain amount of, oh, whatever, I'm gonna get back to TikTok now. And I hate to deride that as laziness because that makes it sound pejorative, but I mean, there's only so much mental energy people are willing to put into stuff, and I worry that as human beings that are, our current evolution is to put less and less mental energy into things, and that means that when you get something, when your AI has created something that you at a glance look at and go, that'll
Mm-hmm.
do, that it's so much easier to just say, I'm going to go back to playing a game now or walking outside or doing whatever and not put any more mental energy into this. And it's too easy to accept something that honestly is low value
Well, I
because it's good
think,
enough.
Drew said something interesting, which is, AI slop is a symptom of something, and it can be a symptom of
Mm-hmm.
multiple things. It can be a symptom of simply not enough time, right? Like, I think, Ben, your example of people saying, I want to put minimal effort into getting the maximum result is true in some instances, but also, like, especially in law, there's so much pressure to do more with less time,
Yeah.
right? You have, like billing requirements, you have client requirements. Clients could be saying, we don't think you should have spent 5 hours on this. We think it should have been two. You have, like other lawyers pressuring you for things, opposing counsel pressuring you for things. And it becomes really attractive to say, as long as it passes the smell test, that's fine,
Mm-hmm.
right? You also have the symptom of thinking that you understand something when you really don't, right? And that's one of my big worries about AI, honestly, is that it doesn't, in many circumstances, supercharge people's understanding. It supercharges their superficial ability to look at something and say, this passes the smell test.
Oh.
I like I could use AI to help me, like write a really long blog post about
Mm-hmm.
statistics. I did terrible in math, right? And I know that I'm not going to be able to understand that. It's easier for me to use AI to write that. I would rather be able to use AI to help me understand how statistics actually works, but I know that's going to take time. And I worry about people thinking that the superficial is enough sometimes, right? Especially in law. And it like a lot of the AI hallucination cases that I've looked at, the citations look
Mm-hmm.
right. They look like good quotes. They're all relevant, but the lawyer simply didn't take the time to go through and say, did this case actually say this in these words? It may have said something kind of close to it, but close isn't good enough in a lot of search situations. And when you get called out on the carpet, you don't want to be saying, "Judge, it was close," right? That's not a defense.
I'm gonna dig into this a little bit, Sam, because you piqued something that has got me going. I think, and this is probably dumb to say, I think people are stupider than we give them credit for sometimes. And I don't mean that to just like deride people, but the point of like when I'm doing research and something comes out and we're off of my topic of expertise and I look at it and I want to sound smart or I want to get an answer and I don't fully understand the underlying aspect of it and I don't fully understand what it's really saying, but it sounds smart because AI a lot of times the output of AI sounds smart, uses the M dash. That's what smart people do, semicolons. And I will say that I've worked around a lot. I've worked around a lot of brilliant attorneys. I really have, like some of the smartest minds I've ever been around. But I've also worked around a lot of attorneys that can fake it really well and don't really. When they read that case, they actually don't come to the appropriate conclusion, And so when they look at this, they're just not understanding it, and this is helping them not understand it in a sense. So I really like that aspect of like we're getting outside of our area of expertise and we don't even know this is slop.
And I'm going to add to this. I was a high school teacher before I made the transition into working in legal tech. And I can tell you that exactly what you guys have a hunch exists in adults certainly exists
Mm.
in children. And one of the most difficult things that we had to contend with is that a 14-year-old can emulate knowledge very, very well. They can follow the instructions and show you the things that look like they
Uh-huh.
understand. The only way to actually validate that they understand is to sit down with them and have a conversation. And that is the scary part about school is we were never very good at even evaluating understanding then, because we would typically have a student sit down and write something,
Right.
or we'd have a student fill out a battery of multiple choice questions. That's emulation of knowledge. It's not necessarily command of knowledge. And I think then that translates up all the way into the
Mm-hmm.
professional world, where just like you're saying, Zach, I could read a case and come to all the wrong conclusions because I don't actually have a
Mm-hmm.
command of the knowledge. And I think the problem is that AI enhances my ability to
Yeah.
emulate knowledge and completely eradicate any understanding or depth I had in a domain. That to me is scary. It means that there are people who will have, let's say, a proclivity to produce more and more AI slop. And that is part of what they have been conditioned to do because that's to them the feedback model created by the system. And there's people for whom AI is an understanding tool that gives them true command of more knowledge. How do you differentiate between the two? Right now, we only have this subjective measure. Is it AI slop? But it'd be great if we had a better way to know, does this person really get it? And I think it's also about, as Sam was saying, did they bring clarity to the work they tried to do? Did they bring understanding? Did they bring clarity? I am hopeful that we can find a way that that improves, but I'm telling you, it exists in our society from the early stages of our development all the way to the point that we finish our careers.
Every AI has the capability to go into a learning mode, teaching mode, where it will become your mentor, your teacher of a topic. And I would be willing to bet that very few people ever use that mode, and that instead they default to kind of exactly what you're saying. Hey, AI, just emulate the knowledge for me. I don't want to spend an hour doing flashcards and reading, and doing exercises and things to actually understand this. I would rather have you emulate understanding for me,
Mm-hmm.
so I can
And that kind of
access it.
gets to this idea of like, we can't, we don't let kids in high school, or we don't let kids in school use artificial intelligence to answer the questions, because that's what we're testing. We're actually testing their ability to emulate the knowledge, not their command of the knowledge. And so, is it really kind of like the question we're asking? I did a podcast for the Lawyers Podcast that was talking to some uh, law professors, and they were talking about approaching the idea of testing people fundamentally differently. If you're testing people by saying like, "Please write something on this," then you're AI can emulate that. And that's interesting. That's so. Are we almost, we're training people to just get AI slop to us essentially.
Well, and I worry that leadership in too many companies, and I don't mean to make this a diatribe against capitalism or something, but leadership in too many companies is incentivized to do
Right.
more with less, right? We've heard that over and over again. I worked at Microsoft for 9 years, and I can't tell you how many times a project that needed 6 people had 2 people because leadership was doing
Mm-hmm.
more with less, right? And I worry that the push from the top in some companies, and I'm sure law firms too, to do more with less and to rely. AI is now our tool to cut costs and cut people, and now 3 people can do the work
Mm-hmm.
of 10 people. But what those 3 people are doing is they're generating the AI slop of 10 people, because they have less and less time. Kind of what Sam was saying before, that it may not be that they're lazy, it may be that they're
Yeah.
overworked. It may be that they've now got too many tasks to do, and they're going to just crank through them as fast as they can, and that means less discernment. It means less understanding. It means less review. It means just accepting whatever looks good enough superficially because it meets a page count or a word count.
Well, and it
And
and it lets us
um,
it lets us put the thing into somebody else's court. We're working on a project with
yes,
multiple people, and I have this contract that I have to review, and it has to go to this next person and all that. And if I can just throw some AI slop at it and get it, and hey, I got my email out. I got my email out. It's in
Mm-hmm.
there. It's in their court now. It doesn't matter that I made their life more difficult by giving them a bunch of. I mean, let's say that we could use an AI agent to redline a contract, and we just boom do it and send it to them, and they're like, these red lines suck. You know, we don't have the mechanisms in place to push back against that, and that kind of gets me into my ultimate question here, like, how do we fight AI slop. We talked a little bit about how we fight it kind of like internally for ourselves. Use artificial intelligence as a learning tool instead of as an emulation tool, you know, and you can kind of do that for yourself. But how do you push back against that when somebody sends you, you know, something that is just fundamentally wrong, or just it's not that it's fundamentally wrong, it's just slop, it's just crap, right?
It must be represented as a cost. I think about how a practicing attorney would maybe have to deal with a sticky case and a difficult client. That was represented in cost because it cost more time to wrap your hands around it. So now, if you've got a client who sends you a lot of slop, I think you should represent it the same way. I mean, perhaps an actual attorney can tell me that I'm thinking about this wrong, but to me, that's the simple, straightforward way: is make it cost the person who's doing it, because it is costing my
But
time and effort.
well, Drew, you have the, I'm going to say, luxury of dealing with clients that are outside of the company. You know, there are a lot of people that are listening to this that the people that are sending them the AI slop are internal. It's somebody sending them something from another project that they're saying, hey, here's my part of this project. You deal with this crap now, you know? And so I'd still like the idea of representing it as cost, but like I think we've all sat there and been like, I would love to tell this person how much time this cost me, but they could be your damn boss, you know? Do we put words to it? Do we have meetings? Do we? I don't. I think my knee jerk reaction as a cynic and kind of an asshole sometimes would be to just slop back. Just, you sent me crap, I'm gonna send you worse crap. And obviously that's not the answer, right?
We got to figure out some way to value quality over
Yeah.
quantity. I mean, and also to measure that. You know, how do you measure what was quality, what was not? I mean, especially that can be pretty subjective.
I think for me, like law is an interesting field because a lot of lawyers have the obligation and the opportunity to become almost like experts on the issues in a case, right? So when I was in law school, I had a contracts professor who would say, when you have a contract case about, like shipping and, like the timelines and shipping and things like that, you kind of have to become an expert on like what kind of, transportation mechanisms are they using? Are they using 18 wheelers? Is it a ship? Like how do the ships work? Things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Like you have that opportunity to become an expert there. And the AI slop issue like gives people such a shortcut that prevents building that niche expertise, that like lawyers have this opportunity to really do these cool intellectual things. And I think it's a shame that we're incentivizing just slopping it,
Well, so this also makes me think. Yeah, this
right?
also makes me think as you're talking about this about the contracts that we have that are just way too big because we put everything in it. Like
Mm-hmm.
take AI out of the word, we've got slop all over the place, and that's not even to say like I think of the contracts that have everything but the kitchen sink in them as like we're not saying that this person's irresponsible. They're actually doing this so they get everything. You know, they want to
Mm-hmm.
cover the field, and now we have the ability. I think of this as kind of just a different way of getting slop. Now we have the ability to cover the crap out of like. I, I may be, I may not be right, but I'm definitely not wrong. You know, if I send you all this stuff, I may not be right, but hell, if I'm going to be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and
There's some good
right,
stuff in there somewhere, right?
you're going to find it. And I think that's another incentive is just to like make sure that I cover all my bases. So I'm going to send you everything, and there's a responsibility, and we need to figure out a way to value curating that crap. Get rid of the stuff that is not right. You know, get rid of the clause that is antiquated and not needed.
Yeah, yeah. I've said that AI can save you time or improve the quality of your output, and occasionally
Mm-hmm.
both. Um, Sometimes neither. Um, but but maybe it's a matter of not looking at AI always as it's here to save
Mm,
time, right? Maybe sometimes you need to accept that it's going to take the same amount of time, but you're going to get
yeah.
better output, um, because it's not a shortcut, not always a shortcut. And I think about we've probably all seen that, the I don't know if I call it a meme, but the one where you see the concrete paths, but then there's a worn path across the grass that's direct, right? That people have taken the shortcut. And the message of that is this is how the path was designed, but this is how people actually use it, right? The idea being that that maybe the design should have accommodated how people
Yeah.
actually use it. And I think in some cases that's true, but in some cases there's a reason it wasn't designed the way the people chose to use it. And so, it may be hard to tell which is which in some cases, but I think that's something we need to confront sometimes, is that sometimes the shortcut is appropriate and just somebody figuring out a better way. And sometimes the shortcut is somebody not understanding that their shortcut is actually not better.
And so like ultimately, I think this just takes to kind of wrap all this up, because I don't want to AI slop this video into people's laps. To kind of wrap this up, like being responsible, being thoughtful, and understanding what the tools are used for. All these things that we should be doing anyway. But one of the things that I kind of want to say is like push back on people when you get AI slop. Call it out. Push back. Like we need to. What is it that the kids say? Normalize. Like we normalize calling out people on their AI slop, I think.
And it may be as simple as just asking some direct questions about the content to help them recognize that what they sent was
Yeah,
valuable.
you don't have to be a jerk about it. Like that's a good point. You don't have to be like, well, this is AI. You can you can help them understand it. So, well, guys, again, thank you for joining me on a Friday morning. I appreciate y'all's time and your expertise and your thoughts. Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.